I never imagined that a single, seemingly ordinary evening conversation could completely shift the balance of my marriage. My wife, Rachel, had always possessed a sharp tongue, one that could slice through confidence with surgical precision. But that night, she crossed a boundary I had never seen her approach before. We were sitting in our living room in Boise, Idaho. The soft whir of the air conditioner filled the gaps between us. I was half reading a book, half listening to the evening news, when she casually dropped a remark that stopped me in my tracks. "You know, I could have someone new in my life within 24 hours if I wanted," she said, her voice light, almost teasing. Yet her eyes challenged me, daring a reaction. She leaned back, legs crossed, a sly smirk playing on her lips. I didn't flinch. I didn't even glance up from my book. Rachel thrived on eliciting reactions, anger, panic, jealousy, but I had learned long ago that giving in to her games only fueled them. Slowly, I closed my book, letting the soft click of the cover resonate in the quiet room. "Is that so?" I asked, calm, measured, steady. Not cold, not dismissive, simply calm. The kind of calm that unnerves someone accustomed to seeing you squirm at their words. Rachel blinked, a flash of surprise crossing her face. She had anticipated a spark of indignation, maybe even a sharp retort. Instead, there was nothing. She leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees, her smirk faltering. "You're not taking this seriously," she said, almost incredulously. I looked at her, really looked, seeing the familiar dance of confidence and insecurity in her eyes. "I am," I said softly, "and yet I don't feel threatened. Go ahead, try. Let's see what happens." Rachel let out a short, almost nervous laugh. "You think I'm bluffing?" she asked, her tone wavering slightly. That was the moment I realized the dynamic had shifted. For years, she had shaped the narrative of our marriage through manipulation, teasing, and those small verbal jabs designed to make me doubt myself. That evening, however, the power balance changed without a single raised voice or threat. I simply remained unshaken, a mirror to her audacity. I could see her mind working, recalculating, assessing. She had underestimated my patience, my restraint, and my ability to see through her bravado. In that instant, the room felt smaller, the air heavier, and I understood something vital. Calm, composed confidence is far more formidable than any argument she could conjure. Rachel shifted, restless. "So, you're just going to sit there and let me say things like that?" she asked, a challenge lacing her words. I shook my head slowly. "I'm not letting anything, Rachel. I'm simply observing." Her confusion deepened. Observation was not a game she understood. She was accustomed to instant reactions, snap judgments, and the subtle concessions that often followed. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. I was setting my own rules. She leaned back, arms crossed, and silence settled for a moment. Then, almost reluctantly, she asked, "And if I did, what then? If you were gone tomorrow, would you even care?" I considered her words carefully, not because I was afraid, but because my response needed to be deliberate and unwavering. "I would care," I said evenly, meeting her gaze, "but not in the way you think. I would care about integrity, about truth, about respect. Those aren't things anyone can replace. Not in a day, not ever." Her smirk faded into a thin line of doubt. "Integrity, respect," she repeated, disbelief in her tone. "I'm talking about someone who could love me, be with me, make me laugh." I interrupted gently, still calm. "Rachel, love isn't a commodity. It isn't a transaction where people can be swapped in and out on a schedule. What you call replacement is only an illusion, not reality." I saw her processing this, eyes narrowing, a mixture of intrigue and frustration. She had never met resistance like this from me. Never. For years, our arguments had followed the same pattern. Her provocation, my reaction, her satisfaction. Now, that cycle was broken, simply by remaining steady, unbothered. Rachel let out a barely audible sigh, and for a moment, she was quiet. That silence spoke louder than any argument we had ever had. She was searching for footing in a conversation she hadn't anticipated, her mind realizing her usual tactics no longer held sway. And in that quiet, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. No shouting, no pleading, no anger, only me unshaken. And that, it seemed, was enough to unsettle her. "Fine," she murmured, almost to herself. "Maybe I underestimated you." Her words were tentative, testing the waters. But within that quiet admission was recognition, perhaps the first genuine recognition in years, that the power between us had shifted. I simply nodded, letting her words linger, without triumph, without gloating, just calm acknowledgement. I knew the challenge wasn't over. Rachel had a way of probing boundaries, testing weaknesses. But I understood something crucial. When someone's power depends on provoking others, removing the reaction removes the power. For the first time in our marriage, I felt I held the reins. Not with force, but through steady presence, measured words, and quiet confidence. Rachel studied me, chin resting on her hand, curiosity, frustration, and perhaps a trace of admiration in her eyes she would never admit aloud. "You really don't feel threatened?" she whispered. I shook my head. "Not at all. You may boast, you may try, but my sense of self isn't tied to anyone proving something to me. And the truth of our marriage isn't either." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're calm. Too calm," she murmured. That was the moment I understood something essential. Calmness is often mistaken for weakness, but it is one of the most disarming powers a person can possess. It signals control, patience, and the refusal to be manipulated. "I'm not here to prove myself," I said softly, "and I'm not here to watch you prove yourself either. If your idea of love is a race to see who can be replaced first, then maybe you need to reconsider what love truly means. Love isn't speed, it's depth, it's understanding, it's trust." She absorbed every word, her smirk replaced by a thoughtful frown. She shifted again, subtly uncomfortable. I didn't need to push further. The silence did what confrontation never could. In that quiet, the truth settled between us, undeniable, like dust caught in a sunbeam. Rachel had always thrived on reaction, chaos, emotional fireworks, but tonight, she could not provoke me. Not then, not in that moment. Finally, her voice softened. "Maybe I underestimated how much you value yourself, how little control I have over you." Brief, almost buried under pride, but it was there. That single quiet acknowledgement marked a turning point. The game had changed. I had won, not with yelling or manipulation, but by being unwavering in calm. I smiled gently, not with triumph, but with quiet assurance. "It's not about control, Rachel. It's about understanding, about knowing the worth of those in your life. Not just yourself, but everyone around you. If we move forward, it must be based on respect, clarity, and honesty. Anything less is mere posturing." She nodded slowly, still digesting. The room carried a new energy. Not tension, not anger, but the tentative recognition that something fundamental had shifted. That night, I went to bed without the usual argument, without simmering frustration. For the first time in years, I felt peace, a sense of control not taken, but reclaimed. Rachel, for all her bravado, had met someone who would not play along. Someone who knew true strength is quiet, composed, and patient. Someone who understood that power lies not in who can replace whom, but in the clarity of one's own self-worth. And in that calm, measured response, in my refusal to be shaken, I realized something vital. It wasn't about proving her wrong. It was about proving myself right, showing that respect, patience, and quiet confidence outweigh any boast, challenge, or fleeting attempt at intimidation. And Rachel, for all her certainty, finally understood.